Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Yasodanandana Bhajanana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Bhajanana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Yasodanandana Bhajanana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Bhajanana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Vistapad Paramahansa Prabhupada Asatya Sri Shimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Anandi Gaura Vaishnavani Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Iskcon Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Samakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shiva Navadam Ki Jai, Shri Maya Panavidam Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Go Premanandi. All glory is some devotees, all glory is some devotees, all glory is some devotees. All glory is Shishi Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Sadakaya Chakshur Malitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukram Kotabachalam Pangum Langhayate Green Yat Kripas Taraham Bande Shigurum Dinataranam Vanchikalpa Tubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So tomorrow is the anniversary of the incorporation of Iskcon, and that was done 54 years ago in 1966. So it's actually a special day. Now Prabhupada actually began his preaching, of course, in India, and he would invite people to his home, and he would have programs, and yeah, he was preaching even when he had his pharmaceutical business in Allahabad. He was preaching, but he really started preaching when he went to Jhansi. In Jhansi, somehow he was offered a building, which was apparently was supposed to turn into a donation. So he was doing some major preaching there in Jhansi, and he was going around the surrounding villages as well. He was doing some nice preaching, and he was thinking that this they actually gave him a nice building. Well, didn't give it to him, but there were some stipulations. So he was thinking that this is very good, and he was inspired to do more preaching, and therefore he kind of neglected his business. He still had the business, but as Krishna says, "Yasyaham anugunami harisita dhanam sharai," to show special mercy to my devotee, I take everything away. So his business was just taken away. Of course, he wasn't putting much attention in. His attention was in preaching. This was his heart, preaching Krishna consciousness. But then somehow the wife of the governor, I don't know if they don't call him governors there, but anyway, he was a big position, and his wife decided to use that building for a women's club. So there was nothing he could do. It was out of his control. So then, he when things got that bad, he just decided, all right, let me follow the instruction of my guru and go to the West. Yeah. So he would adjust. If things aren't going good in one area, he would change. Yeah. So he decided, all right, let me just go to the West. So that's when he started his journey, and it took. Of course, it was a big thing to get permission to come to America. It was a big thing. I mean, not many Indians were in America at that. Very few Indians were in America at that time, and it wasn't easy. You had to have a sponsor. You had to have a P form. You had to have all kinds of things. You had to have proof that you don't have a debt. And there were so many things that Prabhupada had to go through. So many loops he had to jump through to get to America. So finally, he was able to, by Krishna's mercy and by his determination, he was able to come to America. And when he came to America, he had a great treasure with him. Do you know what that was? That was Srimad Bhagavatam, 600 of them, 200 sets of the Bhagavatam that he had translated in India. So first he went to Butler. Someone was there to receive him, and he took a bus to Butler, Pennsylvania, and he started his preaching there in Butler. But after a while, they could see that this is probably not the best place. It's a little town, Butler, Pennsylvania. But he was actually very impressed and pleased to see so many churches. And he was preaching at some of these churches. And the people were very nice. Yeah. But eventually he thought, this is probably not the best place. So he went to New York City, the most important city in the world at the time. Probably may still be. So he had one contact. That was a person who taught yoga. I think his name was Dr. Misra. So he would go there, and sometimes he would let Prabhupada speak. But they were of a different opinion. He was a bit of a Mayavadi, so Prabhupada would have these heated arguments with him. And Prabhupada is, he's personalism. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. So he allowed Prabhupada to preach there sometimes, but eventually he stopped Prabhupada from preaching there. Although sometimes he would preach to the guests there. So then he met some people, and he was able to stay in a loft, which is where people go and they practice music and stuff. It's not really in a normal apartment. It's a loft. It's kind of long and not much facility, and no bedrooms, or just one big room. So he was staying there, and he was getting some people to come. And there was one person that was showing some interest. Prabhupada called him, I think his name was David, Mr. David. And he was showing some interest, and he was actually staying with Prabhupada. And that's where Mukunda, who was Michael Grant at the time. He was a musician there. He had also not been very long in New York, but he somehow heard about Prabhupada, Swamiji at the time. So he went there, and he was very impressed with Prabhupada. So he started regularly coming and inviting friends. Carl Jurgens was one of them, and others he started inviting. So he got a group of people that were regularly coming and hearing Srila Prabhupada. So then this one person that was staying with him, he was taking drugs, and he came back one night, and he was, as they say, was drugged out, and he actually threatened Prabhupada, violence. So Prabhupada left, didn't even gather anything, just left, and never went back there again. So he knew where Carl Jurgens lived. So he went there and said, "This is the situation. This man, he's gone mad. So I can't go there." So Carl Jurgens was friendly and had a lot of respect for Prabhupada. So he said, "Well, you can come and stay with us." He had a girlfriend there also, wasn't so much interested. So that caused a little bit of tension. So then Prabhupada mentioned to Michael Grant that I need a place. We need a place where we could continue our preaching. So he went on it, Michael Grant. And he found 26 Second Avenue. As they say, that's where it all began. That was the first temple, 26 Second Avenue. And from there, so many people started coming and showing interest. But it wasn't easy because everybody that was coming and showing interest, they were all hippies, you know, taking all kinds of drugs and alcohol, just very degraded. So Prabhupada said, I remember reading recently, he said, turning someone into a devotee is like trying to tame a wild beast and making him a pet. Very difficult, especially us Westerners, just no regulations, so much sinful activity, and just wild, literally just wild beast. But Prabhupada was so expert that he tamed so many Western wild animals and made them good devotees. This is the mystic ability of Prabhupada. Just like sometimes people would ask Prabhupada, can you show us any mystic powers? He said, these boys are my mystic powers. They were animals, and now they've become devotees. Oh, that's very good. Sometimes people, they're able to manifest gold or manifest ashes or something. But that's nothing compared to turning a Western militia into a Vaishnava. That's amazing. So Prabhupada, he was doing that. People were chanting 16 rounds, following the four regular principles. Actually, it's interesting that Prabhupada, he was such an expert preacher that he gave the positive message of Krishna. He didn't express so much the rules and regulations, because a lot of times that scares people away, follow rules. Sometimes devotees start right off with that. Rules, these are the rules, these are the regulations you got to follow. And they're like, whoa. So Prabhupada was so expert that he didn't even speak about that. He was just giving everything positive about the beauty of Krishna, the Hare Krishna mantra, the prasadam, just giving himself. That was the most positive, just such a pure devotee, giving himself to these people. So so much so that at the initiation, just before the initiation, they asked, well, are there any rules we have to follow? Right up to the initiation. Oh, yeah, these four regular principles you have to follow. Just chant 16 rounds a day. Oh, okay. And by then, they had been captured by Prabhupada's sincerity. So, yeah, this is the way to preach. Right? It's everything positive. Now, this 26 Second Avenue is where Prabhupada established this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and this is where he incorporated. So there was one, I think it was Carl Jurgens, yeah, who had a friend that was a lawyer, and they wanted to establish Iskcon as a non-profit organization in America. So this lawyer said, yeah, sure, I can do that. No, he was actually interested in doing this for this Swami from India, so he was actually inspired. So, but the devotees were thinking, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. We just got this one little storefront in New York, and we're not even really national yet. I mean, just one little storefront, So devotees, they couldn't see, Prabhupada's vision. But Prabhupada had this vision. So there was about, I think, maybe 10 people that had to sign as president and treasurer, and different things you have to have as a corporate. And these are just hippies off the street. Maybe some of them just came 3 or 4 times. But they thought, oh, yeah, let me help the Swami. I don't think if they had any board meetings or anything. That was just to set it up, just to get it going. Of course, Michael Grant, he was one of them. Jan, his wife, was one of them. So that's how it was established, Iskcon. So what's kind of interesting is that 26 Second Avenue was the only temple that Prabhupada started himself. He preached there and brought people. He cooked the Sunday feast. He would cook the Sunday feast, and then he would serve it out to everybody. And the people that were eating this, that were honoring this prasadam, they were amazed. Man, he could cook. Just like one devotee asked Prabhupada, who's the best cook in Iskcon? This is about 1976, when there was a lot of cooks. So one devotee asked Prabhupada, who's the best cook in Iskcon? Prabhupada said, I am. He was a really good cook. So you can imagine these people were just really getting the mercy, He was cooking for them, and he was serving it out to them. Such a gentleman, such a pure Vaishnava, just incredible. I don't know who these people were that were getting such mercy right there from the beginning, but they really got the mercy. So many people were coming. So then one day, Michael Grant said to Prabhupada, I'm going to California on my way to India. Myself and Jan, my wife, actually he was Mukunda at that. He had gotten initiated, and Janaki. So we're going to go to India. And Prabhupada said just nonchalantly, offhand, okay, well, while you're in California, maybe you could try to start. And nothing serious was discussed about it. Just as he was, walking out the door, Prabhupada just happened to mention that. So Mukunda said, yeah, okay. And that was that. And then you left. So he had some friends in Oregon that they wanted to visit. Sam, who became Syamasundar, and his girlfriend, who became Malati. So they went there, and generally, when the hippies, when they visit each other, they, out of courtesy, they say, "Well, would you like some acid? We have some acid here." It's like a way to show courtesy. Some drugs. No, that's okay. We stopped taking drugs, and then they found they got married, and that was like super. Back then, it was super radical to get married. Nobody got married back then. The hippies didn't get married. It was like free love, it was a wild period of time. So they were shocked. No drugs. They got married. Vegetarian. They're following these 4 regular principles, but they're happy. They're happier than we are. And then they started telling Sam and his girlfriend about Prabhupada. And just seeing them so happy and hearing about this Swami that they have so much love for, all of a sudden, who is this person that's changed their life and they're glorifying so much? I want to meet this person. So then Mukunda said, well, he mentioned maybe we'd start a center in California. So Sam said, yeah, let's do it. And then we can invite him over. He wanted to meet Prabhupada. So they went to San Francisco, and this was the time of the Summer of Love, 1966, 67. I think it was 67, the Summer of Love, when thousands and thousands and thousands of hippies were going to San Francisco from all over the country. It was just like, it was unbelievable. So they got a storefront there in San Francisco, and they did what they were doing in New York City. They were making prasadam. There was a lot of homeless people, hungry people. So they were getting donations from from different stores. We're serving out food to the homeless. People that are hungry. So they were giving food like that. So they were distributing a lot of prasadam. Of course, they were doing Harinam and preaching a little bit. So then they got some people that were showing a lot of interest. So at one point they decided, well, let's invite Prabhupada. So this is the second center. Montreal, I think, was shortly after, maybe a little bit before. They were very close. So they invited Prabhupada to San Francisco. A lot of people are coming and showing interest in Krishna. And so Prabhupada said, yes, yeah, let's do it. So they sent him a plane ticket. Prabhupada had never been on a plane. 70 years old, never been on a plane. So it must have been quite an experience. For someone who was so experienced. Prabhupada was a very experienced person. He had big business and traveling around all over India, and so he said when he was on the plane that the houses looked like teeny little matchboxes. It was quite an experience for him. So he lands in San Francisco, and when the doors open to the plane, that back then there was no security. You could come right up to the gate. So everybody just came, all the people, the devotees, about 50 people came to greet Prabhupada at the gate. So as soon as they opened the doors, you can imagine, they could hear, because they had a big kirtan. They had a huge kirtan, 50 people chanting Hare Krishna. So before Prabhupada even got off the plane, he's hearing the loud chanting of Hare Krishna. So you can imagine how ecstatic Prabhupada must have been to hear that and just see all the devotees or people that are coming showing interest. So Prabhupada must have been overwhelmed. See, this is the Shakti. This is the greatness of a pure devotee. That by his preaching, before he even visits a place, there's already so many people chanting Hare Krishna. That's powerful. So when Prabhupada gets off the plane, they have an aisle for him. And there's I don't know, 25 people on each side, and they're each giving him a gift. As he's walking through the aisle, people are giving him gifts. So Prabhupada must be so pleased. So then they took him to the temple, and he preached. Every day he was preaching. So many people were coming. So many people were coming, showing interest. Now, it wasn't that easy. I just read Satsrup Maharaj in his book. He said, for each sincere person that came and showed interest in Krishna consciousness, there was 100 people that would challenge Prabhupada. A lot of people challenged Prabhupada. Well, what about Buddha? And Prabhupada said, oh, are you following Buddha? No. Well, what about Christianity? Are they following Christ? Are they following the teachings of Christ? And then they would come with so many philosophers. What about Aristotle? What about Plato? What about they would come up with, well, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Challenging so much. And there was one instance where a lady, she was leaning on a windowsill there, and she just started shouting at Prabhupada. What are you going to do now? Just shouting as loud as, what are you going to do now? Because Prabhupada he would defeat all these challenges. He was so expert, and this is what impressed the devotees the most. He was so sharp. He was so sharp. So this one lady just kind of went ballistic, So Prabhupada just put his head down and said, very softly, this is the darkest in the darkness. And just a few devotees in front could hear Prabhupada say that. For someone to just come off like that, shouting, just like that. Prabhupada he was amazed. So this is the pure devotees, Patita Pavana. Just like Lord Chaitanya, he is known as Patita Pavana Hetu Avatar, the most merciful incarnation of Krishna. So Prabhupada, you could say he is the most merciful devotee, to come to the West and give Krishna out of compassion for the conditioned souls. So Prabhupada was telling more devotees to go out and start centers. Just like now, a very important part of our Iskcon society is book distribution, internet preaching, college preaching. These are big ways that we're, especially now, internet preaching is our main preaching. But back then, Prabhupada was emphasizing so much, start a center. Go out, start a center. And he was giving blessings to those who would go out and start a center. So he sent devotees to Los Angeles. He sent devotees to Australia. He sent devotees to Germany. Sent devotees to Japan. So everywhere Prabhupada went, from that time on, from the time he left 26 Second Avenue, wherever he would go, there would already be devotees there. He went to Los Angeles some short time after, maybe a month or 6 weeks after being in San Francisco, and a center had been started in Los Angeles. So they invited Prabhupada down, and they were preaching. And then the chronology about the Montreal was, I don't know if it was before or after San Francisco, but when he went to Montreal, there was already devotees there. Wherever he went, there was already devotees. And some places he would go to, they would have huge kirtans. For San Francisco and other places, there would already be so many devotees. When he went to Australia, there's so many devotees already there. Probably had never stepped foot there. So many devotees. When he went to London the first time, already so many devotees were there. So this is Shakti. But there's one place where Prabhupada went after 26 Second Avenue where there wasn't any devotees, and that was Moscow, Russia. There was no devotees there. So he went there to speak to a professor. He had been invited because there was a whole, in this particular university, there was a whole Indian studies there. And this, I believe this professor, I think Professor Kataski, he was very, very, very familiar with the Vedas, with the philosophy. So he went there, and Prabhupada was speaking to this professor, but he was shocked to find that although he's very knowledgeable, he knew many of the texts, the Puranas and Mahabharata, Ramayana, but he said, Swamiji, when the body dies, everything is finished. That's it. He didn't believe in the soul. Prabhupada was so shocked. Someone who was so knowledgeable, so he was a little disappointed. But while he was there, Syamasundar, who was his servant at the time, secretary, he went out to get some vegetables, some rice, vegetable, and there was one young Indian man with his friend who saw Syamasundar. He was wearing a dhoti and kurta. So they went over and spoke to him, and I think they asked him if he had any Beatles albums. Or Beatles were very popular back then. And by then, Prabhupada had already met the Beatles, George Harrison. And he said, no, I don't, but my guru is here, and George Harrison accepts him as like his main spiritual teacher. So would you like to meet him? I said, oh, yeah. So these two went to meet Prabhupada. And the Indian young man, he wasn't so interested, but the Russian was very interested, and he knew English. So Prabhupada preached to him for 2 days. Practically gave him the philosophy in those 2 days, and he became the first devotee. And what's interesting is when Prabhupada and Syamasundar were in the airport, Moscow airport, the security they were opening up the bags. And while they were opening the bags, they found a Bhagavad Gita. And then Syamasundar nor Prabhupada had put a Bhagavad Gita in their bag. So they're like, where'd that come from? And Syamasundar was thinking, oh no, they're going to send us to Siberia or something. Then we'll never be seen again in the West. Because that was during the Cold War, America and Russia. And it was known that they would, that people would disappear. So they were, especially Syamasundar was quite frightened. He didn't know what was going to happen now. So the security person was looking through the book, and as he was looking through the book, a bunch of pictures fell out of the book. And so he's picking up the pictures. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know there was pictures in it. So he grabbed all the pictures and put them in the book. And here, sorry, he gave the book back. So they got through security with the Bhagavad Gita. And what happened was Malati had unknowingly to Prabhupada and Syamasundar put the Bhagavad Gita in there. He didn't tell anybody. Didn't tell either. So that was Krishna. So that Bhagavad Gita stayed with this bhakta, this Russian person. And that book, that Bhagavad Gita, was read by so many people in Russia, because it was all done on the underground, and there was a lot of people that were against communism. And India and the philosophy of India is very popular in Russia. This professor Kutaski told Prabhupada that they had translated many of the scriptures, especially Ramayana and Mahabharata, and they ran out. They had to reprint because there's so much interest in Russia, in India. So Prabhupada was very impressed with that. And he was really impressed with this one Russian. Prabhupada gave the example of, you just test 1 grain of rice and you know whether the rest of the rice is cooked. Yes? 1 grain. We have one of our cooks here. Very good. So Prabhupada, just from speaking to that one person, he could understand Russia will be very good. And now we see our festivals in Ukraine. Ukraine used to be part of Russia, and Russia. More people go to those festivals than the Mayapur festival. They have 10,000 people at the festival there in Ukraine, and also in Russia. So, and before we actually were able to go in, when it was still communism, there was a article in one magazine that only 3 things will stop communism: Western dress, Western music, and Hare Krishna. And a lot of people, I mean, still, they're making so many devotees in Russia. And the main way they're making devotees, thousands of devotees are being made on the internet, especially by this one doctor who he's a doctor, and he also a psychiatrist. So he preaches on the internet through psychology, and then gradually he introduces Krishna, and he's made thousands of devotees, more than any sannyasi. He's made so many devotees. His name is Ardarya Dham Prabhu, and now they're building a hospital now in Russia. You know, like in Bombay, we have our Hare Krishna hospital, so they're doing the same in Russia, and there'll be devotee doctors there as well. So Prabhupada, when he incorporated this society, there were 7 purposes of the society, and I'm going to read them out to you. So there's the first one is, actually the first one has 3 parts: to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large. This is the first thing that Prabhupada wanted to do. And how is he doing that? By book, mainly by book distribution. We've distributed over 500 million, about 520 million books around the world. That's a lot of books. And that means there's a lot of books sitting in people's homes. And Prabhupada said the books are non-different than Krishna, so it's like having a deity in your house. Yeah. So this is what Prabhupada wanted more than anything. He said, if you want to please me, distribute books. So Prabhupada, he knew the potency, he knew the importance of book distribution. Why? Because his guru told him, if you get money, print books. So he understood, oh, my guru is very fond of books. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, if one of his disciples would just go out and distribute a few small books, he would be so pleased. And he's a very grave person, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But devotees knew how to please him. And devotees knew how to please Prabhupada. And the year that we distributed more books than any other year in Iskcon was in 1977. Because they knew Prabhupada would be pleased if they distribute books. And he even said that this gives me life. This gives me life. So they knew, oh, this gives Prabhupada life? All right, we got to distribute books. So many books were distributed that year. And still, to this day, that's the record year, 1977. But Krishna had his plan. So yes, this is what Prabhupada wanted. And still we're doing it. We distribute every year about 9 million books, except for this year. This year is going to be our worst year, probably the worst year since Prabhupada left, because everybody's playing it safe, because of this virus. Better be safe than sorry, right? Already so many devotees. I know of myself of about 8 devotees that have passed away, and they're not even approaching public. The public, they're just, Unfortunately, recently, Bhakti Charu Swami passed away. That's when I really took this seriously. I didn't take it so seriously before that. We were still going out and distributing books. But when that happened, I thought, whoa, that's heavy. So we're holding back now until this virus subsides. So the next one, to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life. See, now there's an imbalance throughout the world. So much sense gratification. Yeah. We're not against sense gratification. We also have sense gratification. We have nice prasadam. We have kirtan, just like our neighbor here. I heard recently our neighbor here said, "You know, those Hare Krishnas, they like to party." You know? Yeah, because we have our instruments, we're playing our music. You know, it's like a party. Yeah, we have a party every morning, 4:30. It's a party. You know, singing, dancing. We're the only people in the world that are up at 4:30 in the morning singing and dancing, right? Except for there's some people in the bars still, you know, they're still singing and dancing. But we're the only ones that are sober, singing and dancing 4:30 in the morning. So, yeah, it's a party. So the imbalance is that people are focused so much on material life. So we need to get this knowledge out to people so they understand the importance of spiritual life. Yeah. This is real life. Material life is this is the activities of the animals: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Yeah. No, life is much more than that. You know, it's understanding who we are, who God is, what the goal of life is, developing our love for Krishna. So this is the big imbalance. So Prabhupada wanted to give that balance. That, you know, we have things to do, you know, in this material world. So they're, you know, even devotees also, they have jobs, and they, you know, they work and go to school, but their main focus is in Krishna. It's like one of the most wealthy persons in India. He's a devotee, but he's a good devotee, a very good devotee. So this is what's needed. That people, they can do their material life, they can work, go to school, and raise their family, and that's okay. But what is most important is spiritual life. So Prabhupada wanted to create that balance. And then, still with number one, he said, and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. Unity and peace in the world. Just like we have this United Nations. But it's not United Nations. Yeah. They started the United Nations, what, about 70 years ago? Something like that? No, 80 years? Something like that. But since then, more flags. That means disunited. More flags means separating more. Disunited. So it should be called disunited nations. Yeah. But spiritually, we can be united. Just like many of you may know that there's this war. I think it's still going on, but much less, in between Ukraine and Russia. Is it still going on? No, I'm not sure. If it is, it's very small. But the devotees in Ukraine and the devotees in Russia, they're still great friends. Yeah. Here there's a war between Russia and Ukraine, but the Russians and the Ukrainian devotees, they're still loving devotees. So this is the real United Nations, Krishna consciousness. So the next one is to propagate a consciousness of Krishna as it is revealed in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So throughout the world, people believe in God. Actually, although America is a first world country, still there's so much religiosity here. It's the only first world country where people still believe in God so much. Like in Europe, first world countries, but so much atheism. I mean, that's the main belief. No God. So, but if you ask them, well, who is God? Not a clue. Not even they don't even know God is a person. It's like they have these leaflets they pass out. No face. It's like a circle. Yeah, that's God. Yeah. No one. Who is God? So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that God is that person that knows everything. Kaving pranam anusasataram anor anuyangsa anusmrida sarvasya dataram achinti rupam adityavardam tamasa parastat. Prabhupada says in a purport that this is how to think of Krishna. This verse shows how we should think of Krishna. That he knows everything. What do we know? What do we know? We know so little. There's billions of things we don't know, right? But Krishna, he knows everything. Very intelligent. So, Kaving Pranam, Krishna, he's the oldest person. But Navayovanam Cha, he never looks like he's older than 16. You never see Krishna with gray hair or getting wrinkled. No. Or slumping over, getting old, legs are going bad, teeth falling out. No, Krishna is the most beautiful. Oldest person, Kaving Pranam Anusasataram, he's the supreme controller. It's like we can control a little bit. We can control our computer a little bit. We can control our car. In our house, we can control a little bit, move things here, move things there. As an electrician, you could, do things. So many things we can do. But Krishna is the Paramishvara. He's the supreme controller. We're little controllers. Therefore, Prabhupada said, we're little gods. Teeny weeny. Small g. Because God means controller. But there's the supreme God. He's the supreme controller. Paramishvara. Krishna. So, Kaving Pranam Anusasata Anor Anyangsam Anusmriya. Krishna, he's smaller than the smallest. He's so small that he could take a long walk in the atom. Very small. And he's very big. It's like there's Karanari Dakshi Vishnu. Tongue twister there. Mahavishnu. Universes are coming from him. But he's coming from Krishna. He's an expansion of Krishna. So Krishna is big. Big time. Sarvasya Dataram Achinti Rupam. And he is maintaining everyone. This is Krishna. Just like we're getting so many nice vegetables, we get so many nice fruits and grains. So many nice things just coming from the dirt. I mean, that's mystical. Isn't it? Mystical. Just dirt. Put a seed in it. It's amazing. That's Krishna. There's a saying that Krishna, he gives and he gives and he gives and he forgives. And we get and we get and we get and we forget. We forget that all this is coming from Krishna. So we should be grateful. And the way to show our gratitude is by serving him. By serving him. And sometimes people ask, well, how do you serve God? What is the best way to serve God? The best way to serve God is to hear about him. And therefore, Prabhupada emphasized so much that we read. We got to read these books scrutinizingly. Because when we read these books, Krishna is speaking to us. When you read Bhagavad Gita, it's just like Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. Prabhupada said that. It's just like Krishna speaking to Arjuna. You're hearing the words of Krishna. And if we hear nicely, then we'll get purified. And we'll develop our love for Krishna. Kaving prana manusasata anoyana nuspreya sarvashidataram achinta adityavarnam tamasaparasa. And Krishna, he is brilliant like the sun. It's like a devotee prays, Krishna, please remove this effulgence. I can see your form. Like the sun is an expansion of the Brahmajyoti, right? And the sun, you can't even look. If you look at the sun long enough, you become blind. It'll burn your eyes. You just look at the sun, right? Therefore, we don't look at the sun. That's just coming from the Brahmajyoti, right? And the Brahmajyoti is coming from Krishna. So you can imagine, very effulgent. Krishna is very effulgent. Adityavarnam tamasaparasta. And Krishna, he can never be overcome by ignorance or passion. These lower modes. So this is Krishna. This is how we should think of Krishna. He's very pure. And the more we think of Krishna as he is, the more we get purified. So it's now almost time to quit. So I'm just going to go through these other three real quick here. So number 3 is to bring the members of the society together with each other and near to Krishna, the prime entity. Thus, to develop the idea within the members and humanity at large that each soul is part and parcel of the quality of Krishna. 4, to teach and encourage the Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting of the holy name of God as revealed in the teachings of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Number 5, to erect for the members and for society at large a holy place. You notice that says a. So what's that? One temple. What would that be? No, he says a temple, a holy place. Mayapur, TOVP. He doesn't say many. He says a. He's thinking of the TOVP. Yeah. A temple or a holy place of transcendental pastimes dedicated to the personality of Krishna. 6, to bring the members closer together for the purpose of teaching a simpler and more natural way of life. And the last one, with a view towards achieving the aforementioned purposes, to publish and distribute periodicals, magazines, books, and other writings. So, again, that's the last one. The first one is about book distribution. The last one is about book distribution. See? This is Prabhupada. He wanted to save the world. Yeah. This is Prabhupada. This is our beautiful Srila Prabhupada. It is now 7:30. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.